because that's how we get stuff. We get stuff as a side effect of becoming the person it takes to get it. If we stay the same, we're only going to get what we've ever gotten. Uncertainty is indecisiveness and ambiguity around where someone wants to go. Because if we don't have a lighthouse to actually reference, then we don't know how close or how far if we're in the right direction. So then we just make the same decisions because we know how to do those. And because we think we have more time than we really do.
Or the most important person who should trust in you is yourself. And if you don't keep all these tiny promises to yourself, I'm going to work out today, I'm going to read this week, or I'm going to do 10 sets of this, whatever it is that you want to do, every time you don't do that thing, you lose trust in yourself. And then when the time will come that you will have to truly trust in yourself, you're going to be a coward. Because every time you promise something to yourself, you didn't stick up to it. You didn't keep your word. So then when you will truly need, I think you're just going to back down because you don't have that confidence, because you never built. You're in a mission to defeat the victim mentality. Mm-hmm. What is going on into the world? Why so many people now more than ever victimizing themselves so much?
I'll start with, for context, the definition of victim mentality, which the victim mentality is an acquired personality trait in which a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of other people's actions, even in the absence of clear evidence. The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. So I want to define what I see as the victim mentality so that people can have a reference point and they could identify it either outside or within themselves. And the question that you asked was, why is there so much victim mentality?
Yes, why do we see, for example, the last 5 years or perhaps since COVID, because we all spend more time online during COVID, and perhaps we saw a lot of people's lives when they're blogging, vlogging, or showing more of their personal lives. So we saw so much of it recently, I would say. What has it always maybe been this way, and we just saw it more recorded, or is it just something that has happened more recently in the modern world?
I think it's something that's happened more recently in the modern world, and I believe it started when we started the Industrial Revolution. I think it started at that point, and then as it's progressed, and as we've picked up speed on industry and new inventions and creations that are happening even faster now, things aren't slowing down, and it seems like things are speeding up. So all these things that are speeding up is solving problems, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a way to outsource a lot of problem solving. We have grocery stores that are easily accessible, where I live in Canada and I can get tropical fruit in minus 35 weather Celsius. And along with that, there is less problem solving required. There's less critical thinking needed. And so we find ourselves in, I like the book by Michael Easter, The Comfort Crisis. We find ourselves in a comfort crisis. And so I think that when we find ourselves in such a state of abundance and there's less things to complain about, then we create more complaints rather than participating in our problem resolution. Solve our own problems, solve my own problems, and my life's going to get a lot easier. The victim mentality, someone could have it for a variety of reasons. The main thing that I think is they get something for it. And I think that the victim mentality, playing the woe is me character or the archetype, is trendy. And people don't encourage courage, they encourage fear. Or they feel fear. And so I think that there is a couple layers to it where it's our external environment becoming easier in the Western world. I also think that it's people adopting what to think rather than learning how to think, starting all the way back at the school system. Those are some of the things that lead to a victim mentality. Yeah. Right. Because the opposite of a victim mentality is the victor mentality. It's the person that came away from that victimship.
Right.
Yeah. Or victimhood. I guess that's the right way of saying it.
And the way you go away from the victimhood is by taking on the extra challenge, by not staying soft. As you said, we don't have enough positive stress in our lives. nowadays. We just, everything is instantaneous. Everything is like instant gratification. I want it now. And that makes us weak. That makes us stop. We forget how it is to chase things and go after things and spend long periods of times of just, smashing our heads against the wall of how are we going to figure out all these things. It's easy to spot it on other people. But what if, to some degree, we have it ourselves? How can we defeat this victim mentality on ourselves before we start helping other people around us?
I like how you said that there. It starts within ourselves first, then it moves outwards. And so another thing as well is we can recognize in others what we see in ourselves as well. A projection can be a reflection. Instead of saying I'm just saying you. That's the only difference. You suck. I suck. And you're bringing that to the forefront, and I don't like that because it's a threat to my character. So that's a thing that popped up when you said that. With moving from the victim mentality to the victor mentality, there is a process where it's going to get unstuck first. It's removing all the cognitive clutter, all the stuff that's in your mind that keeps you overthinking, that's regurgitating time and time again, negative narratives, negative stories, statements, like anything that's up there. Take it from the head, put it down to paper or on a document. That way it's out of the mind. It has a start and has a finish. Stuck up here, it's infinite. And then what I've found is that we can have some folks will take separate stories, so separate experiences, and they'll mash it all together as one story because it has a consistent theme. Similar to if you've ever had a friend date 10 different people, however they were the exact same person, same idea.
Yeah.
And so it's those things that repeat that's preventing us from progressing. It's working to make room, make space in the mind in order to be able to throw the party, to be able to create celebrations and increase our perception of ourselves, our value in ourselves, the utility that we provide. Then it goes into accumulating more evidence by ambitious action taking, where you create the new data that stacks up against the old data that reinforced who you believed yourself to be at that time that you didn't really like. Yeah, because I think of it because character construction is a part of what I do as well. And there's the primary, who is the main decision maker. That's who you're talking to, and vice versa. This is the primary decision maker. And then we have our inner rival and our inner role model. The inner rival actually is more like a court case. Every morning, it's going to be our inner rival as the prosecutor and our inner role model as the defendant. And the inner rival shows up with a stack of undeniable proof that you are not who you say you are. And then the inner role model shows up with an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are. And as the judge, we decide with the evidence presented who is accurate. And when we do more things that are in alignment with where we want to go and the person that we want to become, because that's how we get stuff. We get stuff as a side effect of becoming the person it takes to get it. If we stay the same, we're only going to get what we've ever gotten. So we have to elevate ourselves and create a new identity that we can contrast our behavior with for this unknown frontier that we're about to go adventure on. And so when we make our decisions, the decisions line up with either the rival or the role model, and that's the stacks of evidence. It's micro things, it's not macro things. It's not big things that indicate you're a quality person. It's the little things that stack up. You do what you're going to say. Are you kind to yourself and others? Do you encourage yourself or you discourage yourself? Yeah, so it can just dive into a bunch of stuff.
I totally agree with you. You said it so beautifully. And just to this last thing that you said about doing the things you said you're going to do, that is so important because the first person or the most important person who should trust in you is yourself. And if you don't keep all these tiny promises to yourself, I'm going to work out today, I'm going to read this week, or I'm going to do 10 sets of this, whatever it is that you want to do, every time you don't do that thing, you lose trust in yourself. And then when the time will come that you will have to truly trust in yourself, you're going to be a coward. Because every time you promise something to yourself, you didn't stick up to it. You didn't keep your word. So then when you will truly need, you will have to trust in yourself. And then you will know that you will have to trust in yourself. And then when the time will come that you will have to truly trust in yourself, you're going to be a coward. Because every time you promise something to yourself, you didn't stick up to it. You didn't keep your word. So then when you will truly need, I think you're just gonna back down because you don't have that confidence because you never built.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I'll share this too because it ties in perfectly with what you're saying there. There's the way that I actually think of creating the evidence is data-driven decision making. So our decisions, in Latin, decision to decide is decadere, to kill off or to cut off. So it's to kill off one option in order for another option to live. And so when we decide, it's a vote for those. It's an accumulation of that data in either direction. And so this is what I teach my crew. The way that we create more decisiveness is to remove soft talk, which is unclear, uncertain, ambiguous, indecisive narratives, and then turn it into solid talk. So an example sentence of soft talk, a couple of them, you may recognize some of the words. I might make it to the party for 5 p.m. I think I'll go to the party for 5 p.m. I'm probably going to be at the party for 5 p.m. I should be at the party for 5 p.m. Now, I like to say that if a statement can be followed with a question, it wasn't said solid enough. So we remove the soft talk, the mights, kind ofs, maybes. Then we got, I'm going to the party for 5 p.m. I'm not going to the party, or I'm undecided, I'll let you know. And so what this does is it microdoses our decision making. And we get to make those small decisions. And what happens is we build up that competence in our decision making, which as a side effect has confidence. And then what happens is when we trust ourselves with the smaller decisions, the bigger decisions are going to be easier because we've built up that muscle to decide, to take responsibility, to organize our own life.
I love this. And we should take responsibility because when we become better, everyone around us becomes better. We should not forget that we have an effect on people. No matter what we do, we leave people better or worse than what we found them. Then by us complaining and telling ourselves that we are victim of our circumstances in front of these people, we're definitely not leaving them in a better position than we found them, even if they don't know it. So we have this effect to those around us. And if it happens to be a close circle, then it will have that effect even further back to us. So I think we should definitely take seriously becoming the best version of ourselves.
Totally. I totally agree. Yeah.
What are some signs when you start working on yourself? What are some signs that you realize that, you know what, I am becoming the best version of myself? What are the big tells?
Ooh. One, you look in the mirror and you consider yourself a winner rather than a loser. I think that everyone has standards, their own standards, subjective standards of how they define a winner and a loser. And I think that when people look in the mirror, they're going to be able to honestly say which one. With that as well, the way it feels is that it's a lightness and you become more objectively aware of your subjective existence. So you become more aware of your own character, your own person. You're not only in the experience, you're observing the experience. So you create space. So let's say, for example, let's say it's a story that's an ouchie story, a story that hurts, haunts, taunts, or annoys. People can go through the process that I take them through, integrate it, and process that unmetabolized emotion, and then they feel lightness. And so it's not a wild experience. It feels like this is going to sound weird. It's like an emotional poop. Like it just feels like or an aha. Like it feels like clicks.
Yes,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
You release some weight. You alleviate some weight.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah.
And
so,
is this the weight of judgment perhaps that we had in ourselves, that we're not good enough? So we
I think because how I was talking about themes earlier, I think judgment could be a theme, shame could be a theme. Because we can have fear of success and fear of failure. So it could be intertwined. So I think that when there's themes to it, let's say rejection, then you think of a story of the first time that you were ever rejected. Mine was in elementary school, and I actually had a fear of rejection for a solid chunk of time. And now I don't care. I'm good. Uh, and so when we start to remove those stories, then what happens is you become untriggerable, because you can responsibility is the ability to respond, and you respond rather than react, where you're more aware of what you're thinking and how you're breathing.
Speaking about self-worth, I wrote this tweet I want to share with you that time.
Sure.
All right, so the sun doesn't measure its worth by the shadow that it casts. We often measure our worth by the degree that we can successfully achieve a certain set of outcomes that are set as standard by society. The money that you make is not an indication of your self-worth. Whether you are loved or not is not an indication of your self-worth. The house you live in does not make you more worthy of love, more worthy of respect, or more worthy of your own approval. The car you drive won't convince those who were on the fence to liking you to end up liking you, and your job title won't give you the respect you desire. You will only be respected by the degree that you deserve for who you are around others and how you treat them. A CEO title casts a big enough shadow. But if you were to measure your worth in accordance with the contents of your character and the contents of your soul, that shadow could be cast wider and further. Stop letting the outside world determine your worth. Look inside.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. I like that. What does it mean to you overall? Like, what does that mean to you? Mm-hmm.
That means to me that no one really sits down and have some deep introspection to think, to determine, to define what success looks like for them and what worth looks like for them. Because at some point, we are all conditioned from our environment or parents or community of what to want. And you could be 30, 35, or at some point in life, and you've been chasing something that you want to want, but you don't truly desire. And that goes against who you truly are, and it starts manifesting in different ways. You are unhappy, or you feel depressed, or my relationships are not working. But the thing is, we've been outsourcing our work to this degree that our parents told us we should take. I'm not worthy because I'm not the doctor my mom wanted. Oh, I'm not worth it because my ex always used to tell me I couldn't do X thing enough to well for her. So we are so outsourcing our self-worth. But the thing is, we determine that worth to ourselves. Not to society. Society determines our worth when it comes to society. But to ourselves, it's only us that we can determine the worth of our life. That's what I think.
Totally. Yeah, I like that. I like because I think there's a split where I really liked it, where it was self-worth and success. I think that those are two very separate things, where success is not an indicator of self-worth. Having a definition of what successful is important, and then having those two things line up and be able to dance with each other rather than conflict with each other. That's a good sweet spot to be, because what we get is a side effect of our character.
Sure. So in your coaching sessions, what is the biggest single thing you see that people are struggling with?
Confronting stories.
Tell me more about that.
Every story is its own dragon. The dragon's in the way of the gold. Dragons are intimidating. And if we're not well equipped to take on the dragon, we're going to die in that boss battle. And so folks with this practice, it's facing that dragon. Mm-hmm. However, the set and setting, like inside test, it may feel intense, and it's confronting that dragon that is the hardest thing to do. So I like to also give people the opportunity to confront their biggest dragon. I say, let's put the gorilla on the table if you're open to it, because I won't force someone to go into a story that they don't want to explore. You can't pay me $1 million, force someone to go into a story that they don't want to freaking explore. And so there is a way to where we whittle it down, build up more courage to be able to take it on, and eventually people will get there. Some people will go straight for the heavy duty story and then make everything else super easy. And so it's just where someone is in their exploration. that they figure out which one they want to go with. And I'm cool with either or. But I would say, and it is that confrontation of something that they didn't think that they would be confronting, that it could also be a story that is a component of their current character. So when we're confronting a story, let's say we identify as a victim via a trauma that we experienced 50 years ago.
Yeah.
That story is going to be lingering. That feeling is going to be lingering. And so when we hit that story, when it's way back, then for flesh things out.
So you are better equipping people to fight their own dragon.
Totally. Yeah.
I like that.
I'm a wizard.
You're a wizard.
Yeah.
So in these stories, are there any archetypical stories that we should be telling ourselves? As if you could apply it universally. Are there a couple of, archetypal stories that maybe we should be internalizing or just, consider thinking about more often?
There's a couple things came to mind. That's a really cool question. I'll put this as a start on it. Affirmations is wishful thinking. Wishful thinking is affirmations without the evidence to back it up. So there's not a statement that I could say that another can adopt and it's going to work and they're going to feel the same way I feel. It's going to be their own feels. So bringing out the stories, there's evidence indicating who they want to be. So it's like, what does it mean about you that you experienced this and you're still alive today? It means that I'm courageous. I am courageous. Now, that's evidence-backed affirmation. So even if they're resistant to wanting to liken themselves, because some people aren't used to that too. Like, if they understand not liking themselves for so long, liking ourselves is scary because it's new.
Many people hate themselves.
I don't think hate themselves. I think they're just very, very hard on themselves and they just create problems that don't exist. And they listen to people that discourage rather than encourage their goals. And they learn from people who have not done what they want to do.
The broke friend gives them advice on how to get rich, and I think they take it too much to heart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Totally.
So you can't wait for everything to be okay in your life for you to live your life. Let's talk about this. So, people wait for the stars to align to start living life. I'll travel when I'll have money. I'll have a kid when I buy a house. I'll quit my job when I feel ready with this new skill that I'm acquiring right now. There's always something. There's always something, and that something is an excuse that seems to precede our life-changing decisions. Why do you think we do that?
A couple of reasons. One is uncertainty, is indecisiveness, and ambiguity around where someone wants to go. Because if we don't have a lighthouse to actually reference, then we don't know how close or how far if we're in the right direction. So then we just make the same decisions because we know how to do those. And because we think we have more time than we really do. Yeah, that's the answer right there. Felt that one. It was like popped up. I was like, yeah, I think that's the common denominator one. Because I was trying to find something that wasn't in a separate theme. I was trying to find something across the board, whether someone's joyful and they're not doing what they want to do, and they're sad and they're not doing what they do want to do, they're anxious, they're excited, whatever. Any of those, I wanted what the underlying theme was. And I think that it's people believe that they have more time than they really do.
So we lack this sense of urgency because we think life is too long and, we're going to find some time somewhere in the future. But the days pass, man, and they just pass and you get older and that time is not coming back. And, the person who you could become, it's further and further away. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because the thing that I can say right now is you and I and everyone listening to this is the youngest they're ever going to be. So it's just gonna keep on going from here. I think of it like squeezing toothpaste, where when you first get the toothpaste, you put a whole bunch on there, and then you get down to the very end and you just like squirt in little bits. You're like squeezing the tube as hard as you can to be able to get the rest. And then just like, why wouldn't I conserve in the beginning and do the things first? And then when I run on empty, then, I'm not, oh my gosh.
I love that.
Squeeze
every single time.
Yeah,
Same thing.
same here.
Same thing. On that, life is too short, but long enough at the same time.
Mhm.
And the modern trap is wanting everything now.
Mhm.
We want to fast forward the results, not realizing that we find fulfillment in the process itself. Life is not about speed running to our deaths. Life is about living our day to day. What are some ways that we can recalibrate our perspective and adopt a more healthy mindset when it comes to our expectations of, instant gratification?
Ooh. I like that. I'm gonna start with a theory that, or a thought, like where I think instant gratification pops in, because I think when we're doing the things, it's no different than playing a video game. We pick an adventure, we have an objective, we collect tools and experience points along the way, we level up, then we can take on those dragons. And and in real life and in video games, because my video game was Skyrim RPG, freaking crushed it. I had like 4 houses there, spent hours on it.
Right.
I was building my life in a video game rather than literally. And because I had to make, I was making my own adjustment to my own expectations to fit reality rather than trying to force time to my will. I'm flowing with time instead. And so, with how quickly we can accomplish objectives in a video game, anything in the real world seems so much longer. So, we're training early on, either actively or passively, ourselves to have less and less of an attention span. That's why, like, 9 minutes is the average length of time that most people will pay attention, and then flip us to a different topic. And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. And so when it comes to setting expectations, the way that I like to go about it is to start with an estimated time of arrival, how long, and I always start with 10 years. So I set 10 years as my baseline expectation. And then I go through and I figure out where I want to go, what path, who has done the thing that I want to do, and then I adopt and amalgamate a system if it works. And so then if I say, okay, so if this person was 30 and it took them 5 years to create a solid business, or 10 years to create a solid business, and I have all the information I get to learn their lessons without making the mistakes. And so then it's like, okay, so it's actually going to be 10 years. My new estimation is going to be 5 years. And when I start getting the ball rolling through what I set as my non-negotiables to get there, because it is objectives, it's just goals, and it's just going on the adventure and to do it. Then from there, it's breaking things down into the practice and actually changing your estimation. So something that could have taken you 10 years now brought it down to 6 years. And if you have an expectation of it'll take 10 years and it takes any less than 10 years, then you're a winner. Then in your mind, you were right.
And those goals you just mentioned, do you think goals are necessary in living robust and fulfilling life?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if there is not a goal, whatever it may be, what is someone working towards? Period. Or question mark.
Yeah.
So
Anything.
I think that
Anything and everything.
So I think that if we don't have goals, if we don't have an idea of what we want to do, who we want to become, what life we want to experience, even if it's a simple life experience, it doesn't have to be extravagant, still defining what that means to you. So if someone says family is my highest priority and they're putting work in front of family, evidently family is not the highest priority. So if it's a goal to have a better family life, then adjust on your calendar when your hard stop is from work so that you can practice being more present with your family.
Right.
Because once again, I don't know, I think it was like by the time kids are like 15, I don't think I'm going to get this just stat right at all. I'm just free balling. There is a statistic out there where it says that by the time that a kid is 18 or something like that, you've already experienced 25% of their life. Like how much time? Because there's so much time in the beginning. And then as everyone goes and lives their own lives. And so there's less and less time. So I think if it's a priority, then set it up as a priority. And if you want to know what priorities are, just look at what you do on a regular basis, i.e. check your calendar, because that's where people are going to show their priorities.
As a clarity consultant and being in this coaching world, if you could boil it down to one, what is the single greatest idea or practice that has transformed your own life the most?
You know what? I'll actually say everything that I'm talking about today, because this is a side effect of my problems becoming my passions. So I solve my own problems, and I found a way that that whoever it resonates with, I know that's going to be a simple, flexible, you can take it with you anywhere, because it's literally just words in between your ears and just getting those to go better. And then high leverage. So it's easy to do, high leverage results, and something I could do anywhere. Those are the things that I was looking for. So right. I created it. And then I also find that it solves a problem where there's a lot of head heavy practices or body heavy practices. There's not a dance between the two. And so with the words, stories, and breath, we're going with the mind and the body. So we're getting both in there. And then it's also so biased of me to say that, yeah, my own practice is the thing that actually got me like freaking solved. You know, it's pretty sick. It is true though. It's
you're selling it.
True. Yeah, because it's just something that works so well. It's convenient, and so that's the practice that's helped me the most. And I've had a whole bunch of experiences that are like catalyst experiences or books that have brought along a solid chunk of aha moments. Yeah.
And I keep thinking this was like the clarity consultant thing. I don't know, it has a certain tone to it, because it's not that this is what we need perhaps the most in our adult lives when we're struggling and we are stuck. Clarity. We need clarity. And I've noticed this in my not only immediate circle, but just people around me, that maybe around 30, we all come to realize subconsciously that much of our dreams and we passionately dream, that much of the dreams we so passionately crave to achieve were instilled to us by society, as we said before, and parental conditioning, and they were never true desires. And we just got so tired, and we realized we want a simple life. I think most people are still deluded by this whatever Hollywood idea, Instagram perfect life idea, that they don't want to admit that they are okay with a simple life. And perhaps they lack that clarity that they need for them to come to that understanding that, there's nothing wrong with just being the average dude, playing a fulfilling life with whatever you feel is fulfilling.
I will also go on the opposite end, where I think that it also goes the same with someone who's living a simple life that wants to live an extravagant life.
Everything, just because I like that you mentioned it, because so I work in hospitality, and I encounter a lot of people that don't really believe in themselves so much. They say, "Oh, I'm just a chef. Oh, I'm just a waiter, man. Like whatever. What I have to say doesn't matter." But that is so self-defeating, because you can really become anyone you really want. Like totally. You just by having this smartphone and with internet in your hand, you can live such, man. It's totally. Just crazy. It's just crazy, and just by saying that not only to yourself, but saying that out loud to strangers, it just solidifies that mindset. And imagine you do that for 20, 30 years of your life. How hard it is then when you're 50 and you finally realize what you didn't chase. But how late is it now? Because that mindset, oh man, is going to be very, very difficult to change.
Totally. Something that's cool with that, there is a psychologist, his name's Orion Taraban. Really freaking cool name. I was like, yeah. Okay. He made a cool observation, and I do see this as well, because we're living in a time where I'll say kids now. I'll just be old man on this one. Kids at the age of 25 are experiencing a midlife crisis. That's a crisis of self-identity and their character. They don't know they haven't created who they want to be, rather than they haven't found who they are. They haven't created who they want to be. And so he was talking about when men specifically, when they retire, they experience a midlife crisis, and that's a crisis of identity. And I believe it was Jung that had the archetype of the psychology of the man-child. And so what happens, and this is Orion's theory that I like, is we go through life, the fella goes through life, they go to school, they go to post-secondary, they find a lady, they have a house, they have a dog, they have a kid, they have a car. He has a job all through this as well. He keeps on working that job. And then eventually he retires. And then when he gets there, all the things that he was told were going to be promised, fulfillment, time, however, there's less time, because the average age of retirement is 65, I believe. And so what you'll see is they'll revert back to the point in time that they had the most control of their life. And that was in their teenage years. So they're not creating a new identity based off their maturity, experience, and wisdom. They're going to the point in time that they recognize, or that they perceive themselves to have the most control over their life. So that's why you'll see like guys retired and they're getting the nice sports car. They never get it before. They don't even like cars. They don't give a shit. Right. And they're like, oh yeah, they're going to clubs more. It's like, bro, what? And so it's a crisis of identity. And I think that when we decide to create and explore what brings us, because I think that like the practice of self-actualization, the practice of becoming who we want to be, that is the goal. And the actual goals are just ways to help you get there. So I like to think of it as, it's not the goals. It's like, who is it that you want to be and who is it that you don't want to be? So coming up with a vision for your life and an anti-vision.
Right. And something you mentioned there with the retirement, which is going to tie back with not waiting to live your life. Yes, if you retire at 65, and perhaps you live to 85 and you have 20 years, those 20 years are not the same as the years back at 20, because now you won't be able to do whatever, skydiving, or you might not be able to do that hiking trip or kite surfing. So it's certain things that you can only do at certain periods of your life. So going back to what we were talking before, if you keep postponing things to work now so that you can have the money to do those things later, there is no guarantee that you will be. Maybe you have a cardiac problem that, maybe you can't even leave your house. So just, again, waiting to live your life is a massive mistake.
Another thing to go with that too is the downside of not having a purpose. Because you can see in the field of coal mining where fellas that retire, they tend to pass away 5 to 10 years within retirement. And they're working till 65 like freaking yoked, because they're doing a physically demanding job, and they're like, well, maybe not 65, but they're doing some like solid work. And I think that it's the brotherhood that keeps them alive. I think that's what it is in that part. So when we don't create a purpose after that point and we are walking around purposeless, then it's like, yeah, we're not going to have direction. It won't work too well.
There is this quote by Jordan Peterson that he says, the purposeless rat is prone to addiction. And this is from a study where they give mice cocaine. And whenever the mice are isolated, whenever the mice are isolated and they have no task, no community, no toys to play or like a task to complete, they will go to cocaine and they will get addicted. They will hit until they overdose. Whereas when you put the same mice with other mice, and you have games and you have challenges because they're smart enough to complete certain challenges, suddenly this addictive drug they tried yesterday, they don't even go near it as much because they have that sense of purpose. And this similar analogy, as you just said, to our own lives.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. That brings up the other part too, is like, I like to put it as fellowship, the people that you surround yourself with, the people that you make space for. So it's environment and the people you surround yourself with.
And sometimes those people will keep us stuck. That's the unfortunate reality. And I have noticed, I'm very active on X, and I see a lot of my feed is people being stuck, people trying to get unstuck. And either it is a job they hate, a toxic relationship, stuck with their ambitions, they want to do better, they don't know how, no one told them how to read, no one told them how to do business, how to understand finances, or perhaps just clinging to a past that was not so kind to them. If you were that person, what would be the first step you would start taking to bettering your life?
If I was clinging to the past,
If you were clinging to the past, or if you just felt stuck, just stuck in who you are, in any area in your life, really, just stuck. Like, I don't know where to go. I don't know where to start. Like, what would be some things, mate?
the thing that popped up immediately would be to write down all the things you don't like about your life, because that's your list of problems. And as a checklist. So you create your own checklist as a side effect. So you just then start solving. That would be like the easiest thing to go right to. Yeah. Because then we're confronted with the words in front of our face. So then write it down and then read it through out loud. That way you can actually go through it. And then a question well worded is a solution half done. So how can I make more money? Well, then brainstorm. So then create more options, and then the brain's going to start looking at opportunities to see these solutions while you're going through your life, while you're experiencing it. Because you're programming your mind to see, in this case, you're programming your mind to see the solutions to the problems that you've just listed. These are the things that you don't want to do. And then the second part would be not pointing the expectation outwards for those problems to be solved. It's going inwards. So for example, this friend doesn't show up for me. That could be an idea. The question is then reversed, how do I show up for my friend? And then you can list things off a little bit differently, because then it could be a mismatch of expectations and boundaries set on both parties. Because you can have like one person's expectation of what friendship is, and then you can have another's, and then if they're like off kilter, then it's going to be a little wonky. And if those expectations aren't relayed, we can't read people's minds. If we can't read people's minds, then it's us establishing the expectations and boundaries and figuring out where to adjust things for ourselves first, because there's no way in hell anybody's going to force another person to change out of convenience for the person that wants them to change.
All right, interesting. This reminds me, right before our podcast, I was with a friend chatting, and we're talking, why is it so difficult to find a partner and get in a relationship with someone who you truly like? And the problem, what we were talking about is that perhaps they're not the problem. We keep saying, oh, there's a lack of, the pool is very bad, people are like this, people are like that, but has anyone ever sat down and said, am I the person who my ideal partner would be attracted to? Like, we are so easy to just think what we want, our perfect ideal. But did we ever sit down and think like, oh, these habits that I have, would those be compatible with this ideal person that I'm looking after? Maybe that is what deflects them. That maybe that is what repels them every time I go close to them. Because I keep getting close to them, but they don't seem to stay. So who is the common denominator there?
Yeah.
Everyone else?
Yeah.
Or me? So yeah.
I think that most folks are trained to project rather than reflect. I think that, for myself, I was a projector before I was a reflector. Simple as that. It wasn't until I started thinking about my thinking and thinking about characteristics and traits that I embody that I like or disliked, and then taking inventory on my character. And it is, I don't know if it's hard to do. It feels inconvenient, because it's like when you read or hear a reel, for example, and it calls you out in just the right way, and you're like, However, that's so true. I'm not upset. It's like,
Yeah.
it's that when you go for it. So
Yeah, exactly. And in order for us to change, at least I found in myself, is you need a plan, like 100%, because without one, you are all over the place. You don't know where to direct your energy. You don't know where to direct your focus. And a plan gives you clarity, as we already spoke, which makes it easier for you to take action, because you know what action will bring a good ROI, and you know what action is just a waste of time. And then taking action alleviates the anxiety that the uncertainty brings to play. And what have you seen in your coaching sessions? Do you work with plans? Do you make plans for people? Have you make a plan for yourself? What do you think about planning your life, so to say?
yeah, I love that. The way that I go through goal setting, because that's like the last chunk where I go through getting unstuck, celebrating the wins and the progress, and then creating a focus with a frame, a story, and then the floor, the plan. So the goal, the story, and the plan. So identify what the goal is in one sentence, simple. And then you can list off a bunch because that's fun too. Why stick to one? Because sometimes goals overlap, so we can get multiple goals done at one time. So when they're out in front of us, it's like sick. And then from the story point, I'll get my participants, or I'll do it myself as well, where it's writing a story, past tense, present tense, or future tense. So if it's past tense, you're writing the story as if you've already accomplished what you want and you're reflecting on the experience. Present tense is you're currently doing the things today to get the thing that you want. So you're stacking up days. You're identifying what your daily non-negotiables could be. And then future tense is you're getting prepared to do it. You're on the way to doing it. You already have an idea, it's already there. And then you're writing about the first couple of steps. And from there, for the most part, I actually think that a majority of people have the solutions to their problems in their head. They're just not allowing themselves to bring it out, because solving problems also requires work. And so we'll veer away from work and stay in misery rather than veering towards, going for it. And so within that story, ideas will pop up. Oh, what does the person do? If you're reading this story that you just wrote as an observer, you had no context of it and you're just reading it, how would you describe the person in this story? Oh, what will they be really consistent? Oh, okay, cool. They would cut down their working. They would cut down their hours from 6 to 4 because they get most of their work done in 4 hours. So why not put more effort towards another part of my life for the other 2? They would make sure that they have all the things they wanted to do for whatever goals in their calendar or allocated time to work on it. So then you can start brainstorming what the actual steps would be, because people that want something have researched or saw things that inspired them to want it. And many of those things have instructions. So it's just finding the instructions and being able to flow from there.
I like this perspective of how when you view it as like a third person from the outside, it's so easy to find an answer.
Yeah.
Like it is like when you think of other people, it's so much easier to find a solution for them. So you just project yourself as someone else. Wow, that's very.
That's known as the Solomon paradox.
Solomon paradox. I need to check that out.
The Solomon paradox is so it's based off of Solomon from the Bible, and everyone from everywhere would go to Solomon to have answers because he was known as the wisest ever. Okay. And he had a couple of wives, he had a bunch of money, he had an army, he had respect, like he was freaking flowing. So he would give all these answers and then people would go and implement them and succeed. However, Solomon's personal life was absolute crap. So he didn't take his own advice. And so that's the Solomon paradox. Yeah. We have wisdom within us. We just stop ourselves.
Cool. I like that. No, interesting. And mindset, sometimes mindset is everything. There is this thing I really like. When you were poor, it was the rich who were the blessed. Now that you're sick, it is the healthy work less. So, and this can change from one day to another. Like me now, those millionaires, if only I had the light. But if I get sick tomorrow, those healthy people, I don't want to be a millionaire. I want to be healthy.
Uh-huh.
So having that mindset, man, it takes time to cultivate it, but it's very powerful.
Totally. I'll share my definition for mindset as well, because I find that there's most definitions for mindset are ambiguous. Like they're also unclear. It's not practical. You can't reference your behavior. So the way that I break down mindset is they are the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves or our opinion of ourselves. And so when we have a higher opinion of ourselves, our mindset is better. When we have a lesser opinion of ourselves, our opinion's shit. And so we can make the decision to improve our mindset by having a higher opinion. And that's usually goes back to just doing the things that we say we're going to do. Yeah.
Yes. As a coach, how do you know when you have had a good impact on someone? What are the first signs of improvement that you're like, okay, I'm having a positive impact in this person and I can say it because of X?
The easiest answer, I'll go with this one because they'll say thank you for it. Like they'll let me know. And that's usually the one that I like to go with the most because I don't want to interpret any other parts. Because there's some points where it's like, because I'll see them progressing in a way that they won't be aware of yet. Because when I work with so many stories, there's overlaps. And so when they say, oh, I feel this emotion in this part of my body, and it's this on a scale of 1 to 10, I have an idea of where things are. And so it's like, oh, okay, that particular story, you felt it physically in your forehead and it moved down to your chest. So you're now able to see what you were avoiding, and we're moving into loving or compassion into that area. And so where it hits, there's going to be indicators. So I'll know something where I'll be able to take an accurate estimation. I would take an optimistic guess and be able to readjust things. So if it's a you statement, then I just turn into an I statement, and then that usually clicks things. However, before I change any of the wording, I always ask for permission. Hey, is it okay if I just like adjust some things here just to see if because it's all about exploration. There's no right or wrong, and it is fun. Even if it's a hard story, it's still a fun process. And so then it's just adjusting and then flowing. And then there is some like ahas, because I'm trying to collect ahas. When people collect ahas, then it's a pattern interrupt. They recognize maybe two opposing things, then they're actually like, oh, it's actually not this or that. It's not this, but that. It's this and that. And so it opens up that scale. So that's what I see when someone is making progress. And then when they let me know when they're making progress. So it's a two-way street. Yeah.
Nice. And perhaps people don't understand how powerful stories are, but everything we do as a human civilization revolves around stories. From the cave paintings thousands of years ago, from philosophy to reading stars to marketing nowadays, the way Apple sells you the iPhone, it's all storytelling. Podcasts are storytelling. And even the things you don't think, like finance, oh, it's not storytelling. Absolutely. The art of the deal, it's a storytelling. So everything is storytelling, from negotiations, from propaganda. For you, what is the favorite thing about storytelling since you are in this domain?
Let's see. What is my favorite thing about storytelling? I think that, you know what? I like this one, where I think of storytelling as a way to create a reality. So it could be fictional. It could be anything along those lines. It could be a story it could be us creating the story of where we want to go. Then you see hero stories like Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. Mm-hmm. We see that very often. And I think that people can write the life they want to live in existence. I believe that they can, if they are wanting to, and if they deem themselves capable of it. stories can shape and shift things, because when we're writing things down, we're taking it from a one-dimensional reality to a two-dimensional reality. It's only a step away from a third-dimensional reality where we take it from, this is the building I have in my mind. I created the architecture of the building on this desktop, and then I created that building in the city. That's how it flows. So I think that piece can really write what they want into existence. Man, stories come from the Paleolithic era. Like, stories are so important. And going with another one with magic as well, because magic was simply articulation of different stories. Back in the day, there was the people in charge, there was the hunters, there was the gatherers, then there was the guilds that were clergy members, or they were oracles, magicians, shamans, wizards, and they would hold the knowledge, and somehow they would be able to send and receive information from another tribe. And they're like, whoa, how'd they do that? And we know that as letters.
Yeah.
And then we take it another step where, going with magic, where we have the word abracadabra. And abracadabra is Aramaic, 3,000-year-old language. And that's with my words I create. And then we go into a spell. The definition of a spell is a word or collection of words of great influence. So with my words, I create with great influence. And so, bro, words are the ethereal macronutrients of the mind. They create and destroy realities.
Absolutely, absolutely. And all of the wisdom up until now, or even now, it used to be passed through stories. Like the elders will tell the stories that had inside the wisdom and the how-tos of how to survive and how to build a better tribe or whatever it is. Now, of course, these stories are like in AI or books, or, they're all on Google. But all the information that Google has is every story ever written, and then just regurgitate it and paraphrase. But language is everything. So stories have everything. And yeah, they're absolutely super powerful.
Yeah, man. Totally agree. Yeah, it's cool. It's also fun talking about, because what happens with, so that's like the magic side of things. On the sciencey side of things, when we have words that we're repeating, when we have stories that we're repeating, then our reticular activating system, it's going to look for things to support our opinion, or it's just going to look for evidence. And so it's going to have a bias towards what we want to see. And if we only see misery, then we're just going to find evidence of misery. If we only want prosperity, then it's only going to look for opportunities of prosperity.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, yeah.
Totally.
All right, Kyle, last question, man. What is it that you want to be remembered for?
Ooh, you got me on a good one, because I was actually pondering over the weekend greatness. Because I think that's, and I freaking like, I know that some people don't encourage courage and don't like to recognize greatness. However, I freaking loved Timothée Chalamet's freaking acceptance speech, where at the SAG Awards, he stood up there and he's like, oh, I didn't think I was going to win this. And then he said that, I'm going to paraphrase it. He said that he's happy to accept it, and that he does have a disclaimer where he's like, I know that this isn't talked about often. However, I have greatness in my mind, and this here is not a indicator of my greatness. It's just a step along the way. And it's an award that many people want. Like, it's something that's big, and he's like, this is just a step. And I'm like, fuck yes. So I think that it'd be the same. I think it's not just like my greatness. It would be tied in with what I do. It would just be a great thing. And it would be to introduce a practice that allows an individual to be dependent on themselves. So be an autonomous action taker rather than a dependent dweller. Because I believe that when we begin to think more individually, then we're not a part of a common denominator conformity, where even if we have separate little cliques, it's being the same as the common denominator. Like, if you're in it, you're in it, and you can't be anywhere else, or else you're going to be rejected from the group, which is another reason why people don't want to change.
Yeah.
So that's a part of it too. So it would be introducing that. Then another thing that I'd want to be remembered for that is emotional would be my kindness and my vibes. I like to chill. I like to keep up the good vibes.
You get the vibes.
And thanks,
You
brother.
get the vibe.
And so that would be something, you know what? And my heart. That's something that my lady and I were talking about. Yeah, my heart. I got a big heart.
Nice. Thank you, buddy. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very much appreciate it. Thank you.